everyone and welcome back to my channel, She Says Happiness. I'm Mary Ellen and this is my little space where I share with you everything that I've been making and some plans as well. So I've had a couple of days off this week. I'm feeling refreshed. I might not be looking it because teething Henry has been awake quite a bit during the night over the last few days. But yeah, I really can't complain because being off work really is such a joy. It's given me time just to catch up on chores and things in the house, to catch up with a couple of people, but more than that, to get into my sewing space and create just a little. So I haven't gone overboard because there's just so many other things that I have to do. That is the basic fact. But I did manage to sew up a couple of projects. So the first one was when I was off on Wednesday and the day was just jam-packed and catching up on house chores, but I thought I'm going to take an hour out and I'm going to go to the sewing room. So I did, and I made a little pair of pajamas, popping the picture in here for you, for Henry. So I've made these now a couple of times. These are the movie night children's pajamas by Sew a Little Seam. I think they are a fantastic pattern. They're also a free pattern. And in terms of free patterns, it's pretty good. I mean, I can't find any fault with it. Even the options that you've got, the sizes, yeah, different sleeves, different waistbands, cuffing, lengths of trousers. You know, there's just so many possibilities in there. And that pattern will take Henry through quite a few years. I actually don't remember how many years it goes up to. Up to 11, 12. I just happen to still have the instructions sitting there on the page. So from 12 months to 12 years. But knowing Henry, who's already in the 2 to 3 size, it might get him to about 6. But that's fine. We still have 5 years to go. Yeah, wonderful little pattern though. They just fit so well. Perfect for moving children. And yeah, I will indubitably revisit that pattern time and time again. I'm running out of space here on my desk because as I've been getting through the last couple of days, I haven't been clearing up an awful lot as I've went along. So that all lies before me today. So that was my Wednesday. So really, like simple pajamas, nothing extraordinary, nothing revolutionary, and just a little slow jaunt in the sewing room. Behind me, you'll see what I got up to yesterday. So again, because I was on leave, I only put Henry into nursery for a few hours in the morning because I just feel guilty otherwise. And I pick him up then around, you know, after he's had his lunch and things like that. And he's ready for a little nap and he usually gets out on the way home and then he's buzzing ready to go again. So I had all morning yesterday to myself. And this is what I made. This is the Friday Pattern Company Heather Blazer. I don't know how many years this pattern's been out. It pretty much came out, I remember, whenever I'd only been sewing for a short period of time. And I remember at the time it was being marketed as a beginner-friendly outerwear blazer pattern. So I thought, I will buy that and it'll give me something to work on. But me, being me, I didn't get around to it because there were hundreds and thousands of other things to explore and do, and I always readily fell down the next rabbit hole. Also because I don't wear an awful lot of oversized clothes. This blazer is intended to be oversized. It's not very fitted. It's quite boxy. That's not really my style. So while I really wanted to get the chance to sew it as a learning curve, I didn't because inevitably I just went for more form-fitting clothes instead. But I fancied something really different for a change. And I don't want to start making heavy winter coats now. I've kind of written off that plan for this year and making things that will be more useful for the spring. So I have a couple of different coats planned, but I thought I'm going to start off with this because while I was pregnant and breastfeeding, I was very limited. So you're talking like almost like a year and 10 months. I was very limited in the kinds of things I was sewing. I wasn't being overly adventurous because I had fitting issues that I didn't want to have to deal with because part of why I sew is to be sustainable. And I didn't want to start toiling a lot of different clothes and a lot of different patterns to fit me while I was pregnant that I then would never be able to revisit. So I did sew quite a lot with jersey during the months I was pregnant, and then after that I had breastfeeding as my kind of like top priority. So a lot of what I was wearing was like wrap dresses and things like that. But for now, we're coming out the other side, and while I haven't quite finished that journey, it is, yeah, it's coming. So it's time to try other things, and fitted jackets will be one of the things that I work a little bit more on throughout this year. But I thought I'll start off with this just to bring my skills back up to scratch for making kind of like more tailored looking things rather than just dresses and tops and, you know, simple things. I have to say, this was a ridiculously easy sew, which is not what I was expecting at all. I thought I would chip away at this yesterday, today, a little bit over the weekend if I got a chance. But from cutting to completion, like, it was 3.5 hours, and I did stop for tea and had some lunch and like flicking on my phone and like all the little things that you do. But yeah, I managed to do it in like 3.5 hours max. So it is a straightforward pattern, I suppose. It is beginner friendly as well. There was nothing about this that was even remotely challenging. There was nothing I had to stop and go, huh? Because again, instructions with Friday Pattern Company are pretty good as well. And even in the instructions, you'll see like little links that go, if you're stuck with this, go here. And I think there was a video for, you know, doing the hem, because the way it's done is there's like 3 seam allowances to account for at once. So I suppose it's quite nice to have that visually accessible there in case you get a bit stuck. So first thing I want to tell you about this fabric. I really love this fabric, and this came from Minerva, and they sent it to me free of charge as I am a brand ambassador. And I'm going to be honest, when I picked it, I picked it for the color. So the color, what do they call it? It's soft. I think it's soft. I'm going to say warm copper, but it's not. It's soft copper, and it's a bit like my hair. But I love this color. This color is just something I gravitate towards, as you can probably tell if you've been here quite a bit. But I got this fabric. It's a stretch woven linen, and it's part of their core range. They have like a core range of fabrics, and it's brilliant in particular for like plain basics. But the quality of this is lovely. I was a bit perplexed by the description at the start when it said stretch woven. I thought, well, how much stretch is there going to be? I still have a scrap of it here, so let me show you. There's just a little bit of give. You see that? Like it's not gonna stretch around your body. It's not for fitted clothes or anything like that, but it's for comfort more than anything else. And that's another reason why I thought, well, with arms and stuff, that might be a really good option for this blazer. And that's why I finally decided what to make with it. So there is a little tiny bit left, not a lot, but I'm going to keep it because I think it would make like a nice wee tote bag or something, and then get the crackhead out and do something cute with it. Don't waste fabric. It's just one of the things that's in the back of my head all the time, and there's so many little pieces left over, and I suppose I do need to kind of like, I need like 4 more days in the week, basically. That's what the deal is. So yes, really beautiful quality fabric. I have lined it in the inside here with like I think it's like a tencel. I'm not actually sure, because I bought it just because I loved the print, and I will pop a picture in of the lining just so you can see the print in its entirety. That was a fabric I picked up from Rainbow Fabrics, Kilburn. And while I loved it and I loved the pictures and the graphics, I didn't love the base color for me. So I wasn't really sure what I was ever going to make with it. But when I saw it alongside this, I knew that it would look really well together. I probably should have used a slippier fabric, but I'm not going to be wearing huge jumpers or anything under there, and it's absolutely fine. as it is. And I finished it off as well then with like a little pigeon wishes button, which is really cute. So like, I mean, what really is there to say about this? It's a very straightforward pattern. It's got patch pockets. You can see there's not much fitting in there. The sleeves, so the sleeves are actually made up of 2 pieces, so it is proper kind of like tailored sleeve, and that's probably the only part of this that is truly fitted. You have your collar. There's no split or anything in here, and I was thinking actually even for decorative purposes I would have quite liked a split like you would have in a more tailored jacket, but that's just me being fussy. Yeah, there's nothing really much to say about this. I like it. I'll pop some pictures in. I'll get some pictures and I'll pop them in here for you just so you can see them. But I think I will actually wear this. It goes with quite a few pieces in my wardrobe. And it does need a good press, I have to be honest. I didn't give it a good press once I finished constructing it and poking out the corners and things. This still needs all pressed into place, and the collar needs pressed into place. And the collar construction was really strange actually, because it was something I'd never done before. I'm used to putting my collar together before it actually goes onto the garment, but in this case what you do is you attach the undercollar to the main fabric and you attach the upper collar to your lining fabric, and then you put in your facings and your collars separately, and they, yeah, it just magically comes together. So that was a really interesting construction that I'd never seen before. But yeah, I don't have anything bad to say about that pattern. I'm still not 100% convinced it's my style per se, but it was just the kind of project I needed to get back into, I suppose, the kind of sewing that requires a little bit of thought, because I've got to that stage now where I find sewing to be quite intuitive. When I get a pattern, very rarely do I really need to follow instructions verbatim. My instinct kind of takes me where I need to go, and sometimes I find ways of doing things that are not even on the pattern instructions, and I don't know if they're better or worse, but I like them and they work, and I can't say anything bad about them. But yeah, I suppose the one thing I'm kind of curious about, because I didn't make any real fit adjustments to this, I think that's important to say, just to share that with you. I've made this in an XL, which I think they say is 14-16. And the one thing that doesn't fit me really well is just here at the sleeve head. So I think I need to take, and it's minimal, like I don't even think it's a centimeter, but I just think there's a little bit that if I made it again I would take out and do that narrow shoulder adjustment, because I do have quite narrow shoulders. My arms are my problem area, and these being tailored, I was a little concerned. I didn't twirl it, just sorry, but again it was just like time, and I thought it'd be okay. I was risky. Yeah, and I do like my arms would be heavy set. I mean, they're one of the heavier parts of me, and a little bit out of proportion, and something to do with the thyroid too, apparently. It signifies, there we are. But yeah, I didn't find that they were too tight or anything, which is great. They fit really, really well. So nothing bad to say. What else am I doing? What else am I doing? Oh yeah, so this morning, yeah, so we've got to Friday, right? We've got to Friday. And this morning I spent like an hour with a few dresses from my wardrobe that I made. They must be like 2 years old, but I just don't grab them. And I knew why I didn't grab them to wear them. So they're both, are they both? No, one of them was an Adrienne dress. So it's a Friday Pattern Company Adrienne blouse with a gathered skirt attached to it, just to turn it into a dress, which I wear 99% of the time. And the other was a cashmere all-cot dress. And every time I wore them, I was just like, these don't feel right. I've discovered it's the length. Basically, it's the length. So firstly, because I have the skirts on viscose jersey, the weight of the skirt sometimes pulls to the point that things don't sit neatly on my waistline. But also the length. I'm only 5'1". Now when I say I'm only 5'1", I'm almost only 5'1". But yeah, you know, the length of the skirts were just a bit long for me, and I think on the Adrienne I took off like 3 inches and on the all-cot I took off 4 inches. Now bearing in mind, being viscose jersey, there's a possibility those have dropped over the last 2 years and maybe they weren't always that long, but my goodness, it makes such a difference. Then when I put my heels on, it sits just nicely above the knee, and that's where I like things to be. So yes, it feels so much better having done that. And then because I have my cover stitch as well, I got rid of my zigzag stitches on the hems of sleeves and I cover stitched them. So I've learned recently that little tiny grabby hands like to stretch my clothes, particularly necklines as well. So now and again I just take the urge and I go and I run them through the cover stitch to give them a little bit more longevity. But I only do that when I can be bothered changing the threads on those kinds of machines. So not that often. So I did that, and then I cut out a new pattern. And when I say new, it's not a new pattern. It is the New Look 6301. So this is the pattern here. This was the very first stretch garment I ever made. So when I started sewing, it was during lockdown. And I read a couple of blogs. I saw a couple of reviews for the Demystifying Dressmaking book by Tilly and the Buttons, Tilly Walms. And I just sewed my way through it, and that's how I learned the basics. However, I did not like any of the patterns, and even though I was given a copy of the stretch book that came after, I really didn't like the patterns in that book. They were not to my style and taste, so I bought some patterns, and one of the patterns that I bought was this. And I made it. It was my very first stretch garment. I've pulled it out of my wardrobe today because in my head I couldn't really stop thinking about it when I thought about what I was going to do with the fabric that I've cut out. So by way of just like completely digressing, let me show you this fabric. So this is the fabric. And I was like, I do want to sew up with that because I was just in the mood now for something a little bit darker. And this is what I had in my head, and I couldn't shift it, even though I've got other favorites as well. And it's a very simple pattern. There's nothing that difficult about it. I made this with about 2 months sewing experience, and it went well, and I wore it a lot. So I'm hoping it'll be easy enough to sew that up in an hour or two this morning before I then go and get Henry. So can you see the pattern? It's basically faux wrap. It's got pleat detail, and it's got ties around the waist. There are 2 skirt variations. You have your straight skirt and you have your flared skirt, which is probably the one I'm going to put in. I say probably. I've cut this one. There's no probably about it. So on the back there as well, you can see the little line drawings. And yeah, I quite like this pattern, and I think it's nice to go and revisit things now and again. So I'm making the size 14 in this because I remember 14 was the one that I made. And I've tried it on and it fits quite nicely. So I probably should be making the 16, but again, it's a stretch. It's a stretch fabric, so it will be okay. The other one still looks nice on. It hugs a little at the hip, but sure, what's wrong with that? That's what they're for. So that's what I'm going to make. And then apart from that, I'm not sure what I'm going to do next. I have a couple of fabrics sitting about. I have this, which is another one from Minerva, and I'm just trying to decide what to do with it. And then I have another cozy little floral viscose jersey. And I don't know, I just pulled it out, but now I've got this one, and that's what I'm going to work on. So that is me this Friday. If I get this finished, I'll come back and I'll show you it later. If not, I'll upload this, and I'll maybe hopefully get back on Sunday to share with you the progress on the New Look 6301. But for now, I'm going to go and sew. Michael, get a cup of tea first, then I'm going to sew, and yeah, hopefully chat to you all again soon. Have a fantastic weekend, and yeah, see you then. Bye.